Hola, muy buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por asistir a este taller. Estamos muy contentos de que hayan aceptado esta invitación y que puedan pues aprovecharla y beneficiarse y poner en práctica los conocimientos que tengan acá en sus colegios y bueno, en su vida diaria. Como saben, estamos en FUNGLO, de Fundación Global Democracia y Desarrollo, y vamos a participar de este taller llamado Reporteros contra el Cambio Climático. Es organizado por FUNGLODE, por su área audiovisual que se llama Multimedia Global, y por el noticiero infantil Notichicos, que lo tenemos por acá, que es un noticiero de televisión que producimos en FUNGLODE, que se emite todos los sábados a las 10 de la mañana por Telesistema. Entonces, bueno, tenemos esta gran oportunidad. Nos acompaña Jan Willem Bult, él viene de Nederland y es un realizador de cine y televisión infantil que, bueno, ha trabajado este tema durante muchos años. Entonces va pues a explicarnos un poco el tema de ser reporteros contra el cambio climático. Les voy a contar un poco de la experiencia de Jan Willem. Es realizador de cine y televisión, profesor y teórico de la comunicación. Su trabajo en los medios para la infancia y la juventud es conocido por su filosofía Children in the Center, que se basa en una firme creencia en la autonomía de los niños, y este método es el que define su obra desde 1999. En 1995 se consagra como director de programación de 2 canales temáticos en Países Bajos, Kindernet y VTV. En 1997 se incorpora al canal CRO, Netherlands Public Broadcasting, como director creativo del Departamento de Niños y Jóvenes. Durante esos 16 años creó y produjo más de 125 programas, series y películas, además de docenas de coproducciones internacionales, y creó y dirigió el canal público Digital Family 24. Ha trabajado en más de 65 países en todo el mundo. Tiene producciones muy conocidas, lo pueden encontrar en LinkedIn y bueno, otras plataformas audiovisuales para que puedan ver sus producciones, y bueno, él va a presentar también algunas en el día de hoy. Así que le damos la bienvenida a Jan Willem y muchas gracias a todos por venir.
Hola, buen día. These were the last words in Spanish today. Everybody comfortable with English? Yes. All right, great. It's an honor for me to have you here, because when an invitation goes out, you don't know who's going to be the speaker. So we hope the subject is interesting, and that connects us. All of you are here because the subject of climate crisis and how to take care that we inform each other and the world in a good way, in a better way, that brings us all together. So that is really great, especially because we all know then, I guess, that at this very moment might be the most important day of the year for the climate, because today the decision is going to be made in the United Arab Emirates, where these days the big international conference COP28 is. And COP28 is a conference where the countries of the world try to make a common policy on how can we take care that the Earth is not warming up more than 1.5 degrees in 2030. And all the countries have signed, 2 countries not, but let's say all the countries of the world have signed the Paris Agreement. Are you all familiar with this Paris Agreement? Okay. The Paris Agreement is an agreement between all the countries to say that we will take care that we put less CO2 in the air, we'll use less fossil fuels, so the Earth will not heat more up, and in 2030 the Earth will not have heated more than 1.5%. Well, the bad news is that we are already 1.5%, and it's 2023. So the politicians, the governments around the world who made those agreements haven't really done what they promised. And that is why I'm very motivated like this girl from Sweden, Greta Thunberg, said, but this cannot be, it's our future. That's why I'm also motivated to travel around the world and to use my experience, my connections, to support your generation, to get better information, and to get more influence on the future of your planet. So that is so great to have you all here with your motivation to know more, to learn more, especially about this topic, which I guess is the most urgent topic in the world. I think it was 2 weeks ago that you had your flood here, 2 weeks ago more or less, which is another example, and we will see some examples today, of the influence of the changing climate on our daily lives. And even the word climate change is not correct. That is a word that is pushed by the people who are against all those rules because they want to make profits, because it's climate crisis. That's why I'm showing you a slide with a word you think, what is it? But you can maybe guess what it is. Klimatska kriza. I'm doing this, I'm showing this word in this presentation because a few months ago I was in Montenegro, which is in the middle of Southeast Europe, in the, let's say, close to Italy. It's a very small country, 300,000 people, but we managed to have 25 young people from that country who really want to make a change in their country by climate crisis reporting. So with all the experience I have with them, I'm trying to help you today and maybe connect, because that is what makes the world the strongest, is the connection. It's like me and Sandra are connected. I'm from the Netherlands, which is very far away from here. She's from Dominican Republic, even more places. And we meet and we say, well, we have to work together. Because it's for the future of the planet, it's for the young generations that don't have the power. So media and good information, and information that you understand and where you can participate, that's very important. So that's why I'm very happy you're here. I'm honored you're here. And I'm trying to have a great morning session with you by showing you a few things that might inspire you and might help you to make climate reports and to use your own social media, for instance, or to work together. Because what the world needs is good information, and in general, you don't get the good information from the main news sources, because basically it's not made for you. It's made for adults. It's not always taking in consideration your future. It's usually much more taking in consideration the future of adults. So that's why it's so important, I think, and this is one of the things that I'm doing in my work, that your generation, knows the ways how to use media in a high quality way. So that's what this morning will be all about. Sandra has already introduced me a little bit, but I want to share a few things more with you. Where it is? There we are, and there we are not. There we go. There we are. Okay, a little bit more about me. Well, that's my name. These are my first names, but in the USA they always say when they write me a letter, they write, "Dear Mrs. Willem Bult." They think this is my last name, but these are my first names, this is my last name. And I'm not Mrs., I'm Mr. Well, you know, I was also born, and I also have been very small. You cannot imagine, now I'm almost 2 meters, but I was small. And in those days, there was black and white. But today, black and white is back. In Instagram, very successful, very popular. So maybe this was very modern. I don't know. Well, in fact, Sandra has already said what I'm doing. I'm an international film and TV maker, and I was head of channels. And I work especially in children's media. Well, this is more or less what just was said. My basis is that I'm a director, scriptwriter, and cinematographer most of the time. And sometimes they offer me a job to be the head of a channel or to help around the world. So that is what I'm basically doing today. I'm traveling around the world. Now, after these days, I can make a little bit of orange here, because I've been working in Dominican Republic, but I've been working in over 65 countries, almost 70. I think this is the 70th country, so congratulations, you're the 70th country. 70 countries, and trying to support the development of media in cinema, on TV, on social media. And in some countries, really, that was made a huge impact. For instance, in Cuba, there was no children's television. In 2006, there was nothing. The only thing they did, they stole from the satellite the Power Rangers. Can you remember the Power Rangers? Yeah. They stole the Power Rangers, dubbed it in revolutionary Cuban Spanish. And I said, but why are you taking this shit? Let me bring you the most beautiful programs from around the world. I'm traveling, I'm collecting those. But better, why don't you make your own program? And that's what we did. We started in 2007, the first children's program in Cuba, and that is called Reguilete, and it's for small children. And when I'm now in Cuba, it is 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, children that were 5 are now 20, 21, and when they hear that I was involved in the program, wow, I grew up with Reguilete, and they start to quote things from the program, what they learned, what they saw. And it shows how important it is that when you are very young, you grow up, you see things that relate to you, that are from your culture or from other cultures to have the cultural diversity, but where you feel that this is a great story, I want to follow that, it's maybe about me, or I wish I was like that. And it's not big fantasies that you will never achieve. It's the things in life, how to deal with each other, how to have a relationship, how to not have always fights with people, or how to cope with your parents, all these kind of things that are in your daily life. That is great that you can see in stories, in movies, in television programs, things that might be helpful and are interesting, are entertaining to watch. First of all, you put on, if you still put on the television, you put on the television to be entertained, to have a great time. Second, if it also deals with something that might be helpful or interesting for you, it's even better. And that is why it's so important to have good media, good films, good television, good social media for people to grow up. Not only for children or youth, also for adults. But basically I'm focusing on children and youth. You see that Africa is more radio orientated, that's why Africa is not so orange. In Africa, for instance, radio is still more important than television. You cannot maybe imagine, or than images, or audio is more important than images. That is maybe the biggest difference between, especially between Europe or North and maybe also South America, even though here radio is also still important. Are you still listening to some radio channels? Yeah? Not so much? A little bit? Yeah, so, I mean, there's still radio, and some radio is maybe interesting. News. Are you listening, for instance, to news broadcasts, to news items, news pieces, or watching them on your social media? When it really is news, not, let's say, something something fashionable that everybody shares, but really something that is dealing with your world, the world. Yeah? Radio, social media. More social media? Yeah? All right, okay. We'll get to there. So, this is not to show off, but this is great to see that there is a lot of development going on. And in some countries, for instance, at this moment, we started to make a news program around the world, and also in Russia, for example. But there I cannot go back, because at this moment the power of the President Putin is so big that he doesn't want any other news than the news that he wants, that he wants to control. And that is one of the problems we also face with reporting about the climate crisis. Many governments are not happy with that, because if there is constantly news about the climate crisis, they have to do something. And it's not the most sexy subject. It's much nicer to open a new road, to be on a photo, to open a new road, or to go to a school and open a new school. But to plant trees, it's not very sexy. That's why, one of the reasons why the Paris Agreement is still not going to be achieved. Even though everybody has signed, yes, we will. Here are some of the posters of the things that I'm making for children or youth, which is movies in cinema, preschool documentaries on television, documentaries, animation series, short films, and also for different age groups. So I make things especially for preschoolers, especially for elementary schoolers, especially for secondary schoolers. Here's a little clip of a few documentaries that I make for children of different ages. I think here's a little clip with some fiction programs and films. Well, I hope some of the images you will think, I want to see that movie, especially one with the wings, I guess. But so basically, if you want to know more about, good morning, welcome. If you want to know some more about the films and TV programs I make, I'm on IMDb. Anyone of you, this is a question. Who has the IMDb app on the cell phone? Let me see. See. No one. Who likes cinema? How is it possible that you don't have the IMDb app on your phone? Webpage. Okay, good. What? Letterboxd. Okay, that's more to express your opinions. But okay. Anyway, IMDb is also a platform where you can find all the information, and you can go from director to camera to whatever you want. And also you can, if you have seen a movie, you can rate it, and you can see what is the average rating of a film. And today, often the IMDb rating is a recommendation, because you see, for instance, on TV, they say, well, this movie has a 7.3 on IMDb. It's a recommendation to watch it. It's not so easy to have a 7 or higher, I tell you, because people usually vote when they don't like something. It's like social media. People usually say they don't agree with something in social media. So it's also with voting. So it's very difficult to get good numbers on IMDb. Like I said, it's not only things I make for children. You see here already something, and I have put it here. This is a short film, an experimental short film that I made, and that is now traveling to film festivals, and I'm very happy to pick up quite some awards with it. So that one was really made for art reason, and has nothing to do with children. It is about war and peace. And one picture I want to share with you that tells a lot. First of all, it tells that I'm much taller than the Emperor of Japan, because this is the Emperor of Japan. I'm much taller. You see, he has to do this. You know that when this was in Japan a couple of years ago, and they knew how tall he is and how much taller I am. So this was during a festival. And during the festival you have a badge with your name. My badge was more or less here. And 1 hour before I was going to meet the emperor, they gave me a new badge that was here. And I thought, why? And now I know, it was exactly on his eye level. So they are thinking like that, you know, the emperor. And when he came to this festival, and I'm there because I was one of the winners of an award, he's scheduled every minute. So they told us exactly minute this, he's there, then he walks there, then he walks there, and then he leaves the door. And it was exactly like that. Imagine you have a life like that. That's not a life. No. But somebody has to do the job, so he is the Emperor of Japan. The reason why I also want to show it is in a country where there's not much children's television history, like Dominican Republic. People always think that, yes, but children's TV is boring, or it's not important, or it's not sexy. You don't win awards, you don't travel, people want to travel or whatever. Well, this shows the opposite. You can meet the Emperor of Japan by making good programs, educational, social, cultural programs for instance, young audiences. So that's why I wanted to share this picture with you. And as a good movie, it ends with the end. So let's go back to the climate crisis. For those who are new, this is the word climate crisis in Montenegrin. Because what you're interested in, climate crisis reporting, is what we're doing in Montenegro. And the fact that it's blue, this is the UNICEF blue. I'm working there with UNICEF. So, what do we need in order to understand and to become climate crisis reporters? We need knowledge, and we need to share that knowledge. Today we see a lot of opinions around the world without having any knowledge. So there's a lot of wrong opinions or bad opinions or fake news. So the best thing we have to do to become excellent in something and to have the right to be heard is knowledge. That's why you're at school. And that's why you're here, because you're hunger to have knowledge about climate crisis reporting. Then we will focus on media literacy, I would say, but basically we're going to talk about social media reporting, how to use social media and what is happening in social media, what can help you to make your climate crisis reports. And then, of course, it's time for production. Then you really have to produce. Unfortunately, I will not be there, but we have a great idea for it. And we, that's me and Sandra from Funglode and Naughty Chicos. By the way, Naughty Chicos, let's talk about that, because I'm also here to work with the team of Naughty Chicos. Any one of you who knows, who doesn't know, no, we ask you who doesn't know Naughty Chicos? One? Few, okay. Well, then I tell you, Naughty Chicos celebrated 1 year ago, and now it's its 6th anniversary, and it's a weekly program on TV and a daily social media, and it's daily available through social media. And it is a news program specially made for young people, for children. And it started with a girl and a parrot. And since the last 2 years, it's without the parrot. Well, the girl has grown from being 6 years old to here she is. And the parrot is not anymore there. And now she's traveling around the world, if possible. You were in COP27 last year, right? In Egypt? Yes, she was there to report about what's going on. To report for you, maybe for a little younger audience than you, basically for children, to report about this COP27 that was last year and how the world was dealing with that subject. And to give that information here to children through media, through social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and TV. You have to tell me the channel. Canal 11. Canal 11. Every Saturday morning at las 10 de la mañana, 10 in the morning. That is not true. It's possible. And of course, I guess it will be online available to watch again and again and again. Okay. And that is important, that this is one of the things I'm also doing. Building news programs around the world, helping people to make news programs, especially made for children or for youth. So in this case, this is made for children. And in your case, being youth, the things that you're going to do could be, you can say, I want to really make things for children. Okay, it's possible. It would be great to connect with Naughty Chicos. Or you want to make things for your peers, for the people of your own age, the teenagers, and you can do it on your own social media, or together build a channel. And that is what we did in Montenegro. With UNICEF, we built a news channel completely made by young people like you, and they constantly report about what's going on in their country, especially for the perspective of young people. So what's going on in education? Why is education so bad? And they come up with critical research. They come up with suggestions how to improve. Because being critical is one, but being critical without giving solutions is nothing. That's easy. That's what we see too much. That's why it's so important to have knowledge. So at the end, you're going into production. So let's see where we are. Let's start with knowledge. Any one of you who knows the name Dan Peña? Okay, question. Who is on TikTok? Not so much. Hey, that's interesting. Oh, wow. The first country in the world where not more than 80%, that less than 80% puts the hand. So what is most successful here, most popular? Instagram? Snapchat? Instagram? Yeah? So who is on Instagram? Yeah, most of it. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. Wait a second till they sit. Wow, that's a big group. Hello, everybody. That's a really big group. Here are some chairs too. There's one. There's one. Yes, here are two chairs. There's one, there's one, there's one. Perfect. Everybody seated? Yes? All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, this is suddenly we have doubled the amount of people. Welcome everybody. Everybody is comfortable with English?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. This is for the other part. TikTok. Who is on TikTok? Only one there, too. You see, it's a few. Also, what I noticed is more girls than boys. Interesting. This is what I saw in countries where TikTok started. That first it was more for girls and it was more dancing. And then within a year it became the platform where everything was happening. So then there was also boys, adults, news, etc. So since when can you remember that TikTok is here? A year? 2 years? 3 years? Ah, yes, okay, she's right. When it was music.ly or Musical.ly, it was already there. Hello, welcome. I'm asking this because we were just talking about social media. Where do you get your information, news? The difference between just giving your opinion, as most people today do in social media, and having knowledge. So the first thing we try to do here today is to have common knowledge about the subject of climate crisis and also about media production and creation. And I was just going to start to talk about how information reaches you and how especially negative information around the climate crisis reaches you easier than positive Basically because that is what social media do. I don't want to say that the classic media, the mainstream media, don't do that. I mean, also there you have channels that always will be against the government and channels that will always support the government. That's what you see in countries where you have presidents. There's always one side and another side. In Europe, that is different. We don't have presidents. We vote on the parliament, and the parliament picks a prime minister, and they have 3, 4, 5 parties that make a government. So they have to work together. So there's less black-white, there's less polarization. But media, and especially social media, also, they grow when there's more controversy. Because when there is controversy, you want to follow. And that's why they are pushing the controversies. And that's why in the algorithms, you receive the things that you think is the truth. And every time you get new information that confirms, that you think confirms to you that this is the truth. And more and more and more and more, unstoppable. Because that's more advertising. And that's more money for Mr. Facebook and Mr. TikTok. And the only way to get out of that, no, there are 2 ways to get out of that. One is what the European Union, and I'm from the Netherlands, hello, orange, national color, and sometimes we play in baseball. Yeah, Netherlands, Dominican Republic. Usually Netherlands wins, or? No. Oh, okay, okay. We win with football, with soccer. Yes? You like the Netherlands as a football nation?
When we see soccer, yes.
Yeah. All right. Anyone who doesn't like soccer here? You don't dare now, because you know I'm a big soccer fan, and I'm from the Netherlands. Okay, okay, okay. No, coming back, there's one way to get out, for instance, on a more legal level. And that is what the European Union, is a cooperation between European countries, is doing. Next year, there will be a law in Europe that you can choose your own algorithm. For instance, you can say, I don't want all these weird people in my timeline, or all these suggestions to follow, even all these advertising. I just want my friends in chronological order how they have posted. This is how social media started. You had an account, some friends had an account, you started to follow each other, someone posted something, and that post would appear in your timeline, and nothing else, only your friends. And then, of course, the whole industry started to work. And now, you know that in Facebook, maybe, are you in Facebook, by the way, here still? No. Active?
Yes.
Active?
Folks, we stay on Facebook.
Yeah, yes, that's true. It's true that Facebook still has is very powerful. It's the #1 still for, let's say, 30 plus. I will be gentle to everybody here.
Pretty gentle.
Yeah, me too. I'm also 30 plus. Okay. No, so Facebook is still it's still the biggest social media in the world, and many people have an account but never go to it. So that's why it's a little bit difficult to see how big they really are. But anyway, so it started like that you just followed your friends in the chronological order, and nowadays in Facebook, only 20 more or less of your friends see your post. That's why you think, I haven't seen my friend for years. Yes, because they block. They put others in your timeline because they want you to grow. More friends. Every day, 20 friend suggestions. Because the bigger it is, the more you use it, the more advertising, the more profit. That is the world that you grow up in. When I grew up, there was just one television in the Netherlands, and the whole family was sitting there, and it had a market share of 90%. You know, nowadays it's completely divided. There are some social media that everybody's using for here, for instance, like you said, it's Instagram especially. In Europe now, it's really TikTok. Also, what you use to communicate, WhatsApp. Yes, WhatsApp is number one here, huh? Yes. Yeah, which is Facebook, eh? Is Instagram. It's Meta. They bought. It was made by, I think, by Russians. But no, it was made by. WhatsApp was bought by Facebook, so they would have more control on you. Instagram was bought by Facebook because they saw young people are not going to Facebook anymore. Oh my God, they're going to Instagram, we buy them. And now they have you. And me. Me too. Yeah, we're all trapped. And we all have great time with it. So it is the balance, you know, is everything in life is about balance. This is an older man speaking. Everything in life is about balance. But one thing we really have to be aware of is that media have become a competition. Even in cinema, what is the ones that are everybody's going to? I can tell you. Barbie. Who has seen Barbie in cinema? Oh my God, you see? It's everywhere in the world. Oppenheimer. Yes, because it was promoted more or less the same. There's a little bit less Oppenheimer, but you see? It's like that. Same. I was just in Argentina. Same. Netherlands. Same. It's a marketing machine because at the same moment there are 5,000 movies to choose from, but you have no idea. You know maybe 5 or 10 that are marketing in your timeline and that you consider to go to. This is how we are dominated, and maybe it's okay if you are aware of it and this is a choice, but usually we're not really aware of that. And that's so it's the same with the climate crisis. Once you get into a bubble of 100 years ago it was also 2 degrees hot, it's not happening, there's not a human being doing that. Why is that easier getting to you, that information, than, oh my God, we really have to act now. Look at this, look at that. The first is getting much easier into your timeline. Why? Because there is a big campaign behind that wants you to stay calm, please, just use oil, just use gas, because that industry doesn't want you to change. That's why today, COP28 in the United Emirates, they will not sign a contract where it says we have to slowly stop with fossil fuels. While we know from all the research in the world that that is really killing us. And maybe I will be dead before it kills you. But we have to do something. We cannot. That's why it's so important, climate crisis reporting, from your perspective, for your planet. Okay, so I said it's easier to come with negative, with against, with critical, with accusations in social media and in media in general, but especially in social media. Also because in social media, the bubble, you get, once you click on, here's an example. In England, there is a newspaper called The Guardian. It's a high quality newspaper. And I say newspaper, it started as a newspaper, but now it's of course on all media. And when TikTok came up, they wanted to know, how does TikTok, the algorithm of TikTok work? So they put 100 iPhones on the table. On all of them they put a TikTok account. And on all of them they clicked, the first thing that they clicked on TikTok was a different one. So one clicked on football, one clicked on hate speech, one clicked on whatever. And immediately all the proposals from TikTok were based on that first click. So the moment you have a TikTok account and by coincidence you click on something right-wing extreme against climate, you're doomed. You'll get all the shit from the industry that don't want you to think that it's serious changing the climate. The other way around, to look for, let's say, the iPhone that clicked on something more positive, talking about positive in the sense of there is a climate crisis, etc., that was less aggressive. So you see that the negative, and especially if it concerns this subject, is much more controlled, much more pushed by those who make the profit. So you think maybe that, just by coincidence I get this news. It is completely controlled. And that is very important to be aware of, and you can change it. Try in your, I say TikTok, but try in your Instagram, or those who have TikTok. Just try to look for 3 times something with, let's say, Dutch football. And then you get all the Dutch football they will offer you, because they think, this person is interested, let's put Dutch football, and bam, 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 and then put advertising. This is how it works. That is how an algorithm works. That's why the European Union says, next year, you can choose your own algorithm. And that is fair, because the phone is the thing you have the whole day. It's with you, brings you all the information, connects you with all your people, from the ones that you love and are your relations to anyone in the world. So it's fair that not they, for commercial reasons, decide what you get, but that you decide. That is one thing you can do against it. The other thing we can do is more content about it that shows the reality and that encourages maybe others to stand for it. Because there is a difference between climate crisis reporting and climate crisis activism. I know in many in many countries, journalism and activism is kind of merged. Because you're a journalist, you stand for this, and you will tell that. You will say that candidate for the politics is bad, he should be in jail, and that is not journalism. Journalism is providing the audience with information that the audience makes their own opinion. And all information, not only one side, the full story. So climate crisis reporting is not activism. In that case, choose to be a climate crisis activist. It is providing information, one side and the other side. We'll get to that more in detail. So first, now finally I can tell you about Dan Peña. Anyone from the newcomers knows the name Dan Peña? Be happy, all of you, because I'm going to show him. He is one of those people in all media denying the climate crisis, and he's behaving like a monster. And many people, because they get it every day, start to believe him and start to find it attractive to behave like that. So it's not only he could have influence on your opinion, also on your decent behavior or not. So let's watch this clip in which he is on a stage in a conference and a woman is asking him a critical question. Can we try to put these lights in the front of? Wrong ones. Yes. Better. Okay. Can you read the text in the back? Can you even read the text? Yes. Then you have very good eyes. Congratulations. Okay. Okay, watch this clip with Dan Peña on the stage, critically asked by a woman.
Dan, you got the money. Okay.
I got a few, Bob, yeah.
Okay, you support Trump? You do?
Yep.
Okay.
I was one of the first endorsers, public endorsers of President Trump.
What are you guys going to do when our ocean level rises?
Thank you for asking that question. I have the answer, though.
No, let me finish.
I have the answer.
Let me finish.
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
for the first time on Earth, we're changing the gas.
Now you're full of shit. Sit down. I'm going to answer you. I'm going to answer. Just shut up and sit down.
No way.
Sit down.
No, I got to finish my question.
I'm going to answer global warming.
All right, finish the question, then answer.
It's changing on Earth, and it's changing to CO2. What do you people with the money, what are you doing about this? Because
I'm going to tell you right now.
Children. No, I've got children. I've got 21, 23-year-old children. And what's their future with you people with money? You talk about money all of the time.
Okay. Sit down, please. Sit down, please.
What
In
are
the
you
front
doing
row.
about
Excuse me.
Earth?
In the front row. Please
About
sit down.
Earth.
Okay, you've asked your question. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Can
I'm
you
going to answer.
Excuse me, ma'am. Will you please sit down?
And
Please.
thank you.
That's okay. Please sit down. Let him answer.
Okay. In 2011, my wife and I were in Antarctica, renewing our vows. For most of you that don't know, Antarctica's on a mountaintop. Okay? And there is a $500 million facility, scientific facility there, and the scientists came to give us presentations about global warming. And they had cores of ice that they had drilled. They had drilled 4,000 or 5,000 cores, and they only brought 15 or 20. So they're going through the second or third core, and they said 275,000 years ago, this was the temperature, blah, 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 blah. And then 55,000 years ago, the world was 2 degrees warmer Celsius than it is today. This is 2011. And, wait, stop. And he said, and I said, well, you mean the whole world? He says, yes. And the poles are only benchmarks. And I said, well, what about the things that the young woman alluded to? Okay? And he said, it's all cyclical. And although the gas may have exacerbated it, in the cosmos of time, it's not a fart in the wind. In the cosmos of time, of the 13.8 billion years that we've been on this miserable planet, it's not a fart in the wind. And as I told Joe Rogan on his show, and he said in his infinite wisdom, and Joe, if you hear this, I thank you for the opportunity of being on your show, he said, then in 25,000 years, it's most likely not going to be a problem. Now, my direct answer to your question, if that were really true, which you believe, and let's just for a moment say that it is true. That means that the best scenario vis-a-vis global warming is about 10 feet raising water. That's the best scenario over the next 40, 50 years. That's the best scenario. The worst scenario is about 100 feet. But let's just take the 10 feet. If the water on the planet is going to rise up 10 feet, that means the southern part of the United States is gone. England is gone. Most of Europe is gone. And I can go, most of Central America is gone. Okay. If that's the case, let's just take Florida, for example, which is one of the fastest growing beachfront condominiums on the planet. In the prospectus, when you invest, there should be, in the footnotes, if global warming is for real, they won't put it that way, global warming happens and water rises 10 feet, this investment you made is fuck all. Not one single investment prospectus written since 2000, this century, has alluded to global warming. Not one motherfucker. If it were really true, the banks wouldn't invest. The banks wouldn't finance. Not one motherfucking condominium.
I'm sorry for the language.
So the people that have the money, and I'm jealous of the Vice President, Gore, which Sally and I rode on a plane from South America with a few years ago. I am jealous he came up with a scam before I did. Because the financial institutions, the banks of this world know it's not going to happen. Otherwise, you couldn't get a goddamn loan in London. You know those 30, 40-year mortgages? The world will be over by then. Is Barclays Bank going to give you a motherfucking loan? With the greatest respect, ma'am, it's the greatest fraud that's been perpetrated on mankind this century.
Yeah, again, excuses for the language. But it's important to know that that is part of the whole narrative, of the whole way of kind of... Ah, yes, you want light, yes, okay. That is all part of the show. Because what is this man actually saying is that global warming doesn't exist because otherwise you would not get a loan because banks are not stupid. I mean, and people applaud. People believe it, and he says it with power and with aggression that we know from Donald Trump, for instance. I don't know how the politicians here behave, but I see it in other countries as well. But so, and imagine this charismatic person, either you like it or hate him, but there are people that really believe, follow that. And yes, of course, if the banks are giving loans, it cannot be true. And it's just fake argumentation. Besides, they know, why is he a billionaire? Because he is one of the ambassadors of the fossil fuel industry to keep people calm on the climate crisis. But if you get this in your timeline and you start to watch it, and the way he smashes the woman, and the way he might be, you know, kind of overpowering with his information, people really follow him, believe him, millions of them. And it's just an example. I have one more, I think I wanted to show. Yeah, I think here, this is how it appears in, this was a YouTube. Now we see how it appears in social media. Thank you. The reason also I want to show you things from different perspectives is to see how in certain media, how can you deal with certain styles.
What are you guys going to do when our ocean level rises?
Now you're full of shit. Sit down. I'm going to answer you. I'm going to answer. Just shut up and sit down.
No way.
If the water on the planet is going to rise up 10 feet, that means the southern part of the United States is gone. England is gone. Most of Europe is gone. Most of Central America is gone. If global warming is for real and water rises 10 feet, this investment you made is fuck all. Not one single investment prospectus written since this century has alluded to global warming. Not one motherfucker.
Again, excuses for the language, but it's part of what we have to know that is going on. And this is how someone, what we just saw in a longer context, where we might thought, yes, but he's not nice to that woman and she cannot even respond to him, it's completely dominating him. She's like shown as an idiot, and he gets all the chance to make his speech. Everything that he wants to say is, it's ridiculous that it will rise because the investment. So this is how social media, someone in social media is making a compilation of what we just saw in a longer context. I mean, the longer context was not much more wise and rich, but at least you see the choices they made just to make him look strong. And that is what is happening with information. It's taken out of context, and it's put there where the opinion is. While I just said earlier, there's a difference between activism and journalism. In journalism, you provide information, and the audience, and in a good way, in a balanced way. In activism, you just have your opinion, you have something you stand for, and it's great, but you have to be clear, you cannot be an activist and a journalist. While if I look at profiles of many journalists on Twitter, for instance, and Twitter probably you're not on, or X we have to say today, you're probably not on, right? None of you? A few, okay. Okay, again, there were people, The second group. Who of you likes cinema? In the second group, yes, you're a second group. Almost everybody, great. Who of you has, I'm doing the same trick that I did earlier. Who of you has IMDb as an app on the phone? My girl. IMDb. Okay. This is something we discussed earlier when you were not there, that IMDb is a great source to connect all the information of movies and to see that there are not only Barbie and Oppenheimer, but there are 5,000 movies to choose from. And maybe you find reasons to take something that not everybody is going to. Okay, having said that. So, you see here, and also what was interesting, the use of the split screen at the beginning. This is very a thing that people who are much on TikTok, where was it? I think it was... No, it was not in this one. Sorry, I'm a little bit too early. Anyway, we'll get deeper into the use of vertical video and horizontal video and different techniques of bringing information. Anyway, I want to say again that the difference between journalism and activism and how manipulative it can be. But also it shows in what fight we are, because everybody was expecting that in the COP28 conference that is now in the United Arab Emirates, and today it's conclusion day, the whole world, all the nations would sign an agreement to fade out the use of fossil fuels. Because the fossil fuels are making the CO2. It's very simple, and the CO2 is causing the big problem, the climate heating. And yesterday, in the night, it was decided that they take out that sentence. So what is the result? The result will be like blah blah. As Greta Thunberg says, you just blah blah. And you sign the Paris Agreement, and the Earth is already on 1.5 degrees. That's why knowledge and then reporting is so important. I just want to show you two incredible characters of the European Parliament. Two people from Ireland. They represent Ireland in the Parliament. And they are completely independent in their mind, completely critical to anything the European Union does. Because you can imagine, if you have a European Union, you have 25 countries, so everything is a compromise. Everything is somewhere in the middle, gray. A decision. Not much extremes, because there will be always countries against, so you have to compromise. They are not compromise. Their mission is very clear. They want to show that the European Union is not working hard enough on fighting the climate crisis. Even though we all know worldwide that the European Union does the most of all the continents, they constantly say, but it's not enough. And this is how they do it. First, we listen to Mick Wallace. There he is. And he came with a very interesting point that I hadn't heard before, of looking at CO2 emissions.
Is there something special about the military sector that makes its emissions not matter? Since the reporting of military emissions is voluntary, it doesn't happen. It only begs the question, why are we hiding the climate impact of the military-industrial complex from public knowledge? Estimates put the military sector at around 6% of all global CO2 emissions. 6%. Just remember that the global aviation is responsible for 2.5%. And the whole of Africa, with 1.2 billion, is responsible for 4%. And yet, we never talk about what the military is, damage that they're doing. We tell ordinary people to turn their lights off and say nothing to the military-industrial complex. What about demilitarization? What about peace? Did anyone spare a thought about the climate impact of shoveling over 3 billion into Ukraine's war assistance? What country did a climate impact assessment when increasing their military budget? Without peace, we will not have a stable climate. War is a climate change steroid, and many people in here seem to be hooked on it.
Okay, so this is politics / activism. But he brought an interesting point. He even kind of makes me think about the war between Russia and Ukraine, which is only 1,500 meters from my house. So every day Putin can send a nuclear rocket to my house. He's threatening with that. And he's talking about, not about peace process because of we need peace. He's talking about what a war damages to the CO2. For me, it was completely an interesting new thought. Then we have Claire Daly, his colleague, similar, same party, same activism. Let's listen to her.
I have to say the brass neck in this place really beats all sometimes. We're in here to mark EU Day to commemorate the victims of the global crime crisis, and well we should. It's absolutely right to remember that last year 33 million people in Pakistan, 1 out of 7 of the population, were forced to abandon their homes. They experienced record monsoons, now followed this April by record-breaking heat of over 40 degrees Celsius. A terrifying horror inflicted on people who contribute less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions. These are the victims of the activities of the global north. But while we shed crocodile tears for them in here, the same people often are going to come in here and are organising to vote down the nature restoration law. Essential measures which we need to tackle and help and deal with the climate emergency in order to protect nature and protect the very victims that we're now talking about. If there was a World Day to commemorate hypocrisy, we'd certainly be starring in it.
All right. Two very powerful speeches. And she's talking here about the European Nature Restoration Law. There was a law in the European Parliament to be decided about that would push all the European countries, part of the EU, the European Union, to invest a lot of money in restoring the nature in order to fight the CO2 emissions. And it looked like that law was not going to make it. And they were really, really fighting for it. And at the end, the majority of the European Parliament voted for a slightly less powerful, but still very strong European nature restoration law. Which means that in my country, for instance, billions of euros have to be invested in taking care that nature parts will stay nature parts. And that in some places, nature will be put again, instead of using that land to build houses and make profits. So at least we see that there are things happening. Maybe not always on the scale we want, but there are things happening. And they are really two of those fighters that pushes those kind of laws. Usually there are more fighters than that people follow them, but here's an example where they had a huge influence on taking that law. I'm showing them just as information, knowledge. This is what is going on in the world. Like I said, the European Union has these laws. The European Union, the decisions the European Union takes, you have to implement in a country. So the European Union is more powerful than your own government in Europe. This frightens a lot of people, and this especially populist political parties will say, no, we need our sovereignty back, and because usually they are also denying the climate crisis. But there are things happening, and the way you report is important. You saw here, for instance, this was uncut. These were really complete statements, not cut. So you can really listen and make your own opinion about it. They mention a lot of numbers. Is that me? I guess so. They mention a lot of numbers. You know, this percentage, these numbers. What they do very wise is they take only numbers that are kind of general approved numbers in the parliament. So they don't come up with numbers that people say, well, how did they measure that? Is that me? I don't know. Why is this making noise? Or is it someone else? Anyway. It's not me. It has to be me.
Notification, I think, on your computer.
Yeah, but this should be from my emails, but my emails are off, so... Okay. Don't bother me. Okay. Yes, there's a question. I'm always want to hear questions.
It's not a question.
Or a remark. Or critical point, also good. But with arguments.
It's not a question, but what I say about this is I agree. Like the person that was like saying all that like bad words and all that, I feel like that is like something that is different. Like I feel like he should have not done that. Like I think he should have talked in a normal voice. He should have like said it like so calmly, but like he said it like an aggressive voice, because even though he thinks that like, oh, 2 degrees or 2 Celsius less, that doesn't mean like anything, because it's still a climate change. Because for an example, cities like New York or London, or like those cities like that everyone knows, New York is the water is rising. So people say, oh, that's maybe normal for like, you know, the earth and everything, but like that is something with including in the climate change. If we don't change like the earth exactly, like we don't start doing things, recycling and all that, it's gonna happen worse and worse in the future. And the earth may end a little more earlier than we thought that it could end.
Thank you very much for this context and this information. Yes, that's what brought us here all together, because we know something is really going wrong and the world is not reacting enough, and we're maybe not informed enough, or we're dominated by certain information. And you can play a role in that. That's the great thing about that you have access to media where you can make or can bring information, you can make even a change. So thank you for that. Then, also to build knowledge, they were mentioning numbers, and some of those numbers are really important to know, to be aware of, and maybe to communicate. So let's look at some data and some news. This is really sad to start with, and that is that 30 environmental reporters have been killed in a decade. Why journalism needs to change. This morning, when the second group wasn't here yet, the big last group, I told that why, in fact, there is just a little of reporting about the climate crisis often is because it's not a sexy subject. You have to invest a lot of money, and you don't really can make cool pictures of planting a tree. You can make cool pictures of opening a school. So, and it's even in some countries so dangerous to report about it that journalists are killed for reporting about the climate. Is this big is the controversy about it. This big is the profit on one side and the reality on the other side. So it's not the nicest thing to start with, but it shows that how much important it is that good information travels. And it's for your planet. a very important picture is this one, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about what causes, how is the different influences on the climate crisis. This graphic is more or less accepted by everybody. It doesn't, we don't have to discuss if it's 1% more or less. It's not about that. It shows kind of in general what are the influences. And take, for instance, the 2.5% that Mick Wallace mentioned about the aviation. He said aviation causes 2.5% of the climate crisis, of the CO2 emissions. If we look at transport, we see here it says 1% aviation. So it could be 1, could be 2, it doesn't matter. It is relatively small compared to others, but it's relatively big on the agenda. There's a lot of controversy now about flying. If I'm flying, and you see I'm flying around the world, people say, are you still flying, the climate crisis? Because flying is really bad. Yes, it's also bad. There's a lot of things more bad. And yes, please don't all go to fly to have your next holiday, but somebody has to do the international work. So yes, I have reasons of doing what I do, and I'm thinking about it, and if possible I make this, you can have this compensation, CO2 compensations that you can do. But yes, it doesn't, I think personally, it doesn't mean that we have to stop with everything. It means we have to balance the things. We have to be aware of what things happen, and if we can walk, like in my country, if you can walk or go by bike to school, parents don't drop them off. If you have this kind of alternatives. It depends per country, security, safety, infrastructure, etc. But there are ways. Buenos Aires, for instance, I'm living partly in Amsterdam and partly in Buenos Aires. 8 years ago, they started to build bike lanes in the city, and everybody said, no, crazy, nobody wants to take a bike, we're in a car city, we love cars. And now, especially after the pandemic and the crisis, economical crisis, bikes are super popular, and bikes mean less pollution in the air, less CO2 emissions, healthier people. Just some cars still needs to respect better but it is a change that we are in. So aviation, 1% here. But if you look at transport, this together it's more or less 16, could be 15, could be 17. Road, the cars on the road, the trucks on the road, 12%. So, as a climate reporter, how many electric cars are there in Dominican Republic? What is the policy to go to cleaner emissions? These are questions. I mean, for the next election would be a question. So, compared to aviation, the trucks, the cars, the motorcycles, and ships. Here it says 2%. Let's say it could be 3, could be, anyway, it is more than aviation. I never thought about that ships are more polluting than planes, because some years now it's really a lot of against planes, especially in Europe. I don't know if it's here too, that people are really, when you take a plane, that people would say, are you taking a plane? You can't, it's really, and it is not good. I'm not saying, I'm not defending myself, just want to say that everything is in perspective. You have to see everything in its perspective. You cannot just fight on one and leave the others. You have to really know what is causing what in what extent. You see that electricity, to make electricity, still a lot of coal is used. Some 20% of that coal causes the CO2 emissions and the climate crisis. So in many countries, coal is still important, but has to go back. What are the alternatives? Is that, can a country afford it? It's not that easy. Natural gas, the same. And oil, here it says 1%, just to make the electricity. But because oil, you will see also in the industry. Oil and gas production, 5%. So here's 1 plus 5 is 6, maybe 7, maybe 8%. Just those two. What is surprising always is the agriculture part. For instance, Argentina is a meat country. They have a lot of cows, and they sell a lot of meat. One problem of cows, and it was hilarious when I heard it the first time, is they fart. Maybe you've discussed this already at school? I guess so, because it is something we never thought of, in fact. They fart, and the fart is the most polluting thing. Why? Because of the stomach and changing the how you call that, the grass into farts. And we all know that on every corner of the street today there is a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Wendy's, and many of that food that we take there is not the food we need daily to survive, to have enough energy. So we also have become in an industry, in a kind of life, that we are demanding a lot more. We need a lot more meat than we really need, and besides, also some people say you can live without meat. You can be a vegetarian or a vegan. So this discussion is big around the world. I don't know how it is here, if there is a discussion about meat use, or is meat still the main thing in your dish? Yeah? Yes. Well, that has to change. I cannot say it differently like that. That has to change. The amount has to change. We cannot continue like this. Like I have to change my flights. I will not take my flight to a holiday. I will try to be here and then stay in the continent instead of going back and forth. This kind of things in our behavior, in our daily behavior, we have to change. Because we have to bring this down. Well, you see how, in general, it is divided. So the industry, that's very clear. Coal, oil, gas, the fossil fuels are really the basics. So in the Netherlands, for instance, there's a huge policy on change of cars to electric cars. We are already on 60% electric cars. So we're really bringing down the CO2 a lot. There's also a discussion about, I'll get to you. There's also a discussion about electric cars because they need batteries. And batteries need materials that are also polluting. So these kind of calculations and these kind of arguments you will hear, yes, you know, but electric cars, they need batteries, so okay, I better drive my car with a diesel now. But the reality is, okay, let's go to the researchers, to the scientists, the worldwide scientist corporations. What do they say? What are the numbers they publish? Data, facts are the only arguments that we can have in this discussion. I mean, why is Dan Peña being so aggressive? Emotion. The moment he puts emotion, you don't listen anymore what he's saying. You don't listen exactly the numbers that he's using. So he's Googling, he's, how you call that? Juggling, I said Googling. He's juggling with numbers. And it looks like he knows it, but he's a millionaire, that's all. He is not a scientist. He's not a specialist in the climate crisis. Still people listen to him. So also, to who do you listen? Another thing to think of. Who are you going to interview for your climate reporting? Of course, it's important to have opinions from people. And one of the things we do in news is we ask people on the street, the so-called vox pops, to their opinions. But I always say it's only fair to ask the opinion to someone if that person can know. Because it has no use to ask her, okay, so the best football player of the world is Johan Cruyff. Are you agree?
Yes.
She says, yes, okay, I agree. But it means nothing because she has no idea who it is, right? You know him? No, you see? This is how it works. This is how easy it works. But you made a good choice because it's a Dutch football player and it's the best of the world ever. Yeah? Okay. Listen carefully to me. I know it. You see how it works. Okay. So this kind these kind of things are very important also to know and to pick a subject saying, okay, ships. There's a lot of ships here. Let's research a little bit more. What is the policy? What kind of fuel? How much pollution? Is there research? It's interesting to know. Because we have to change. Everything here, written here, is contributing to our death. So we have to change. It has to be put back. Everything in perspective, but it has to be brought back. And then there was a question or remark from the back.
I do want to say something with like the aviation and all that.
Yeah.
There was a specific plane that used to fly. It's already retired. It was in 2003 the last time.
2003?
30. It was retired in that year, but it was called the Concorde. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah, the Concorde, yes.
This plane used to waste a lot of fuel and used to be one of the most expensive planes back then. Used to like damage the air and all that. But this plane, they had to retire it for that. But this company, Airbus, they're now changing their system with new planes that do not waste fossil fuels or none of that, because now, in like with the technology, now there's like a new thing with like the fossil fuels and all that. And all these planes nowadays like waste all that energy and everything. But now with Airbus doing new planes that cannot even waste a fossil fuel or nothing, it's gonna help us a lot on like the aviation.
Absolutely. There is now a plane developed that can fly from Paris to London on electricity and back and forth. So that will change. The only way to change is not leaving it only to the industry, because the industry wants and needs to make profits. That's the system that they're in. But it's making laws and rules. So one of the rules in Europe is we have to be, I think 2050, no plane in Europe can be on fossil fuel anymore. Imagine. So that pushes the market to develop, and there's a lot of research, and you will see one movie that I will show a piece from is a documentary produced by Leonardo DiCaprio. I think you all know him. Now it's an old actor, but he is a very famous actor, and he's very much concerned about this, and he invests a lot of his money in making documentaries where they interview scientists. And there you see that, in fact, for all this, there are solutions. We can stop tomorrow with things, but it's not happening. And in COP28, they cannot agree on saying we have to fade out the fossil fuels. So this is how complex it is. That's why it's so important in your country to have that information that will push also politicians to take stand and to take measures for your health and security. Yes?
So, what would you say is the alternative for countries whose economies rely on polluting factors such as fossil fuels, or, as you said, Argentina is a meat country. So what would be the alternative to create a transition or a clean transition when it talks in an economic point?
That's very good. I'm not an economist. I'm not a politician. So what I see is, the sad thing in Argentina is there's a huge crisis. Really, really, really bad crisis. And the meat is one of their incomes, and they found oil and gas. So now they think, we get out of the crisis because we're going to sell oil and gas. That's difficult. So one of the things is we need more, I can show a video about it. It shows what are the 5 skills and kind of jobs needed to get out of this. I think I'll have it on my laptop. But in general, I could say that we have to invest in knowledge, in much more technological solutions than going on with the, so for instance, going from fossil fuels to electricity, that is one. Going from polluting industry with coals to other ways of producing. I don't know exactly all those ways, of course, but there are other ways. So the thing is that if you continue and say, well, yes, but we need it because of, nothing will happen. What we see, especially in some European countries, is when they were pushed to those limits, suddenly they started to make other ways of processes. For instance, one thing is interesting. Many countries, I think Dominican Republic is one, depends a lot of tourism. Yeah? Okay, so you can do tourism as we always did it. You know, the tap runs in the hotel, and you're a tourist, so you don't care, you leave it on, you go to the room and you come back. You clean the towels every day, even though maybe someone didn't use it. You still put the same chloride into the toilet to clean it. That all is not necessary. These little steps, when it's on a daily basis and in 10,000 hotel rooms, will make a huge difference, will bring the CO2 emissions down. So it's all on that scale. Yes, of course, there's another question. I'll come with the microphone because they are making a recording.
Hello, nice to see you. My name is Fabio. I'm a teacher in Triunfar. These are my students. And I recently have been working on projects related to the climate change, trying to get them well informed about the global aspect, that global problematic. So I have a question for you. In the part of the industry aspect, I've been trying to enlighten them or share more information about what can governments and international organizations can do to mitigate the issue. And obviously they said that while implementing and reinforcing policies that reduce industrial emissions, they can significantly do something about it. But for example, in your country, what type of, let's say, policies or let's say laws have been implemented to mitigate that? Like I have heard that a certain percentage of renewable energy must be, they have to use, and other type of non-clean energy could be allowed to use by industrial and manufacturing facilities. But how accurate is it? Is that happening in your country?
Yes. I can fortunately say that maybe my countries in the north, as they said, the north has made the most pollution. I always say there are two different things we have to think about. One is the CO2. CO2 is what happens in industry and all these things that happen here. Yes, the north countries have contributed more to the CO2 than the south. That's a fact. Second thing is the pollution in your own country. How much diesel cars do you have that contribute to the pollution and make your city unhealthy? You cannot blame me for that. That is something you have to attack in your own country. So there's one thing that we have to do together, the CO2, and there's one thing you have to do in your own country to make more clean air, safe spaces, etc. That is one thing. The other thing is, in my country, and the Netherlands is seen as the top 5 of countries with the biggest impact on changing behaviors. They stopped with subsidies on fossil fuel cars, and they started to subsidize, so they switched the money to electric cars. So if you want to buy an electric car that costs, let's say, 20,000 euros, you get 3,000 euros from the government. Well, that's attractive. And you see that we moved to 60% of electric cars. That's a huge impact because every day, all those cars, all this industry that we have, that is pollution, the clean air, and the CO2. So that's one thing. Then there's a lot of program on changing food habits, healthy food. And that has the impact on on meat industry, on how you do agriculture. Another thing is, in the Netherlands, is that they bring down the amount of farms, because we found out that especially our farm industry was contributing to the CO2. One of our industries is making steel. They used coal. The coal is forbidden now. They have to find other ways, and even there's a schedule where that factory will be closed. In the meantime, they started education projects for those people working there to find new jobs in another and in a new modern economy. This, just in general, would be my answer. It is that it is not just stopping things, it is transition to other ways of producing, and at the same time taking care that you're not killing people's jobs, that you're thinking of, okay, what kind of industry do we have in 10 years then? What kind of jobs do we need? And start with the education. So it is on different levels. I hope that is an answer that is helping you. I can be more detailed, but then it might take a little bit too long. Here are two more questions and one in the back.
Hello, so my name is Diego Giron. I'm a teacher at New Horizons School. These four here are my students. I teach AP World History and I teach AP Government and Politics. And a conversation that we tend to have in the classroom is a little bit about the whole climate skepticism. Especially being an island nation like we are, we have been like the victims of centuries of, extractive policies where most of our stuff has been extracted and taken elsewhere. And yes, it's true that the global north is responsible for most of the pollution currently, that the global south is paying more dearly for, but it's also the global north that has informed our lifestyle. So the status symbol of being a grown-up and owning your own car, that comes from the global north imposing that that is the way things should be. And not only that, but the way we eat.
From me, by the way, not from me.
It's okay. But if we look at our more indigenous diets, they are a lot more climate friendly. Yet, and I include myself, I probably eat a quarter part of a cow every year. That's just who I am. But that was also part of what was imposed as a lifestyle choice. Now, the problem that we face and the resistance that we are getting from local governments as to why we need to change our policies now comes from the fact that for centuries, we have been seeing other people exploit, and become developed. And now that we see ourselves on our road to development, they're telling us that we need to stop. And that seems unfair to nations that are developing, that they should carry the weight of having to slow down their industry to meet global standards when we were left behind by people who extracted all our wealth. Yeah. So that is kind of the struggle that we have with climate here.
No, that's absolutely a fair point. This is one of the things that I pick up in places like this. People often would say to me, yes, you have easy to talk, your country became wealth because of slavery. Everything is connected, everything is it's complex. I agree that this is a global issue and has to be solved globally with respect to all our history. That is in general what I say. If it's possible, I don't know, because this depends a lot of solidarity, a lot of awareness. What I see in the Netherlands, I can only speak for my country, is that we are very much aware of our role in there and our progress. So we are very supportive to the countries that, for instance, were colonies in the past. And we subsidize a lot of projects around the world. So we have made a percentage of our national budget to support countries that have limited resources, have maybe suffered, have reasons of not being able to follow that. that should be a basics, I would say. So yes, I fully agree, fully see what you're saying. And this is, at least I can say for my country, is something that is debated, that is part of our policy to be have a global view, not just your own view on that. Yeah, that's what I can say. Yes, there was one hand. Yeah, there he is, and then I go there.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I come here on behalf of Ergo's Bilingual School, and as far as I'm aware, most of the cement that is produced here or most of it that is used here, is locally sourced and locally produced. We have a big cement industry. Also, as far as I'm aware, the majority of this is coal-based, and I realize that this is the case in many other countries. If we were to eliminate the majority of coal-based energy sources, there are many other industries that would suffer from this.
Yeah.
And I understand that the industry is also a big part of harming the climate, but by eliminating coal, would we not face a crash to the supply and demand of each industry?
Yes, in fact, this is a question that would be perfect for a climate crisis reporting, or the issue that you raise, because these are issues that we have to solve in the back of this. And this is the naked facts, and then there's the complexity. So yes, that kind of questions are. I mean, I cannot answer them. I have my opinion about it, but I'm not here as the climate crisis expert. I'm here to support you in acquiring knowledge, getting connected, and using social media as a powerful tool to raise these kind of subjects. One thing I will come back to you, but one thing I also forgot to tell you is and I'm talking about Sandra from Funglode and Notichicos, who has invited you here today. We also work in an international group of people that said, after we read the book of Greta Thunberg, we said, okay, we have to act. We have to do things. We have to create television and media formats for children, because they have to be informed and they have to get a chance to express themselves. And one of the things we did was, for instance, going to make little documentaries about the wisdom that is in indigenous cultures, who are much closer to life on Earth, to planet, to a vision on the planet and life, than that is kind of washed out of the society. This is one of the things one of the formats that we developed, I wanted to show a little video that is very much connected to that. And this is not something you will hear in a common discussion. So one thing is the facts and the change. The other thing is, okay, what is the complexity? What are all the elements that we have to take into account, into consideration? For me, my mission is to support the generation that's going to inherit the planet in the most horrible way if nothing happens. I hope that's helpful for you. Okay, thank you.
There's something I've been curious about since you started talking about all the changes your country has nowadays. And I want to know, how did your country achieve everything they have now? Like, who started it? Like, was there like the government, a new president, a new organization? How did you start to create and develop everything you have now?
Yes, you mean I'm talking about the history from the first. Wow, that's a long story. Well, it is a funny story actually, because the Netherlands. You kind of know where it is, in this little corner of Europe, next to Germany and England and France and Belgium. It was a delta area. Nobody wanted to live there because it was low. It's called the lowlands, the Netherlands, and it was overflooded by the sea and by the rivers that end there, like the River Rhine. But there was a population called the Bataviras. They lived somewhere Central Europe, and nobody wanted them. And because of by nature, you have flows and streams. It was not like organized rivers at that time. Everything was just moving. And so sometimes trees, a whole forest was deforested, and the trees just were drowning and going by the river. And so the Bataviras thought, okay, we jump on those trees. And we just see where we end. We have to get out of here. And they ended hundreds of kilometers in that delta area, and there was nobody. Nobody wanted to live there because it was always flooded by the sea, and all the rivers were. So they said, okay, then stay here. So they started to build. They started to fight against the water. So the Netherlands is the country that is known for fight against the water, because half of Netherlands now I'm jumping ages further, half of the Netherlands now is under sea level. My house is under sea level. So we had to conquer land by putting dikes and dunes around the country. And this is how those people started to conquer land, to be safe. And even our king, we have a king, King Willem Alexander, married to Queen Maxima from Argentina. My girlfriend is also Argentina, but that's the real queen, I tell you. He even is educated as a water manager. So in my country, water is very important. We have 60% of the year, we have rain. It's a risk that we will flood. So our system is built on taking care of the canals, stopping the water to flow. And it's like, when I was a child, I was always making dams to stop the water and to see what happens, how to construct it stronger. It's so in our nature. So we have really conquered. That is let's say, the history in general. Then Netherlands, somehow, maybe that has also to do with history, we are a trading nation. We are only a small country, but we have a lot of people. We have 17 million people in a country that is 2.5 hours by car from north to south, and 2 hours from west to east. Very small. Very small, yes? Can you imagine? It's very small. That is like a big city. Very big city, let's say. But 17 million people. So we have to organize well. And somehow, because we don't have much natural resources, we became a trading nation. So we bought this here and we brought it there, and then we make a profit. One of the things also, I think that's also one of the reasons that the Netherlands got involved in the slave trade, unfortunately. Fortunately, I can say I have nothing to do with it, but yes, it's still part of our history. It is still part of our obligation, and it's still part of our annual discussions, annual compensations that Netherlands does a lot. And one of the trades now is we used to have the biggest harbor in the world called Rotterdam. Now it's number 5 maybe, but why is it so big? It's not for the Netherlands, it's because of Germany. Germany is not connected to the sea, but is one of the big European countries. They need a lot of product and food and stuff. So the containers come to Rotterdam from around the world and transported there to Germany. That is again trade. We earn by transporting that and organizing the harbor. So we are a very organized country, and that's why also, talking now about the democracy, because that was your very important question. How do we take decisions, and how is it possible that our country is so much aware of it and making so much action? First of all, we don't have a presidential system. So it's not a vote between 1 or 2 or sometimes 3. It is a vote between 35 political parties. Each of them having a different approach to the future, and none of them having a majority by far. So they need at least 3 or 4 parties to make a government, which means that less polarization, because you can not accuse someone and next day you have to work together. So less polarization. Every day our parliament debates everything and nothing is decided without a majority in the parliament. So there's no decretos by presidents. There is, it's a parliamentarian democracy. Then, what is very strong in our roots is press freedom and freedom of speech. So you can really say anything in the Netherlands. Unfortunately, because there's a lot of bullshit also said, but it's freedom of speech. And the Netherlands also is known for that. So, for instance, press freedom, the press freedom organization, Free Press Unlimited, is very strong around the world, supporting journalists that are not completely free to research and report what they think is necessary. So that is, in general, very much the Netherlands. And also, and that is the most important thing, we don't wait for the government. We say the government is there to take care of our safety and the economy and the big lines, but the rest we organize as civil society. So, for instance, our public television is not run by the government, it's not state television, it is run by civil society, independent people. So when the government changes, the public TV doesn't change. Here in Latin America it's different, it's state television. When the government changes, the national television changes. Because that makes the television not independent, and we are very much on press freedom, freedom of speech, independence. Okay, so we saw that if you talk about subjects for climate crisis reporting, look at this, and you'll see something that you could follow. Say, okay, why are we not taking this subject? And some of your questions are the questions you can ask in your climate crisis report. One thing we did in Montenegro, for those who came later, you're connected with a group of young reporters in Montenegro, where we started to do climate crisis reporting in cooperation with UNICEF, that explains the blue, and Klimatska kriza, that explains the name, that is Montenegrin for climate crisis. What we did in Montenegro was, there was elections. Parliamentarian elections, so not presidential, but parliamentarian. And we decided to invite all the parliamentarians, all the parties, and they had 13 political parties, invite all of them to come to the UNICEF building and listen to questions of young people about 5 themes. And one theme was about the climate crisis. And never before in the parliament the word climate crisis or even climate change was mentioned. It was completely denied. So when they were in the UNICEF building, we put them in a big row. This is just a shot of it. And one by one, they got 1 minute to say, what is your policy on the climate crisis? We filmed 13 1 minutes of their statements on camera, and none of them has a policy. None of them. And they were asked by the youth, who said, but we need a policy in our country, because it's our country, it's our future. I mean, not our future, it's today, it's happening today. One of the big problems they have in Montenegro is with an electricity factory. None of them had a solution. So for the next 4 years, they start a new parliament without anyone having it on the agenda. 4 years. That's impossible. That's why they are now climate crisis reporters. To bring information and to try to influence that they still put it on the agenda for the next 4 years. Well, we don't have to listen. Okay, still we are on the part of knowledge. There are two things, two people that you really need to know who are super important for putting climate crisis on the agenda. And number one, I would say by a mile, is someone of your age, Greta Thunberg. Who has seen this documentary? I guess nobody. It's on Hulu, so maybe that explains. But I guess some of you are very handy in finding torrent downloads, but don't say it. Greta Thunberg is a Swedish girl, and I think she was 15, when she decided, I will not go to classroom anymore, I will sit in front of the school and strike as long as my parliament is not taking actions against the climate crisis. And she became very famous because of that, and of much more. And there was one documentary maker who heard that there is this girl who's going to strike, and he said, that could be an interesting subject, I will film her. He started to follow her for 2 years. The first 2 years that she started a change in the world that is phenomenal among especially young people. Becoming aware that if they don't do anything, it will destroy their future. So, this documentary is absolutely worth to watch it, but I found, and that is very helpful for us here today, I found a short documentary, no, it's not a documentary, a short interview with the director. And one of the good things is that he shows some secrets or some details of the movie. We learn to know Greta through his interview, and also his motivation and the way he wanted to make it, which could be helpful for you to think about how to film some things for your climate crisis reporting. Or maybe you're going to make a documentary one day, or a drama. So let's watch this, I think it's something like 10, 12 minutes. The director of the documentary I Am Greta, talking about and showing who she is, why she's so important for what we are doing today. I have to put off the light. Are you doing? Thank you.
It came as a big shock for me that what I was starting to capture from the beginning was a global movement.
The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you.
I've been interested in the topic of climate change when it comes to storytelling for a long time. In this specific case, we got a tip, and this tip was a friend that knew Greta's family a little bit. And I Googled her name. You know, there was nothing about her except one kind of debate article that she had written. And in that article, she also said that she had Asperger's syndrome. I didn't know that much about it, but it felt like it was in some way connected to how does she as a young person see this huge, scary issue of climate change as someone who's going to be affected by that in the future. So I brought the camera and I took a friend with me who's a sound designer, and we went down to Riksdagen, which is the government building outside the parliament here in Sweden, to start filming her and see who she was. She had seated herself, and I don't know how long she had been there, maybe a few hours or something. We were able to capture her from the beginning.
Sorry? 8 tror jag, något sånt.
I had no idea what she wanted or where she was going with the activism, so I went in with a very open mind. And it was so interesting diving into that world of hers. I think Greta was very exposed to this kind of quick media a lot in the beginning. But I was not that media. I always wanted this movie to be a movie kind of told from the inside, in the sense that I wanted it to be kind of Greta more kind of trying to show us her world, that we would understand this story from her point of view. And I think that was something that made her relax around me, to access her life. Time went by, and bit by bit we formed this closer bond. And I just looked at her through the viewfinder every day and said, okay, who is Greta Thunberg today? I've actually filmed almost everything myself. It gives me the opportunity to almost hear the breath and the heartbeat of the person that I'm following. And by doing that, I get kind of emotionally attached to that person and to the story.
Greta, vad är det som är fel? Greta, kom. Vad är det som är fel? Va?
In this movie, I've laughed so many times so that we haven't been able to use the footage because the camera has been shaking. And I've been crying through the viewfinder as well. For me, feeling all those emotions while being in situations with Greta and bringing the viewer, to those moments was so important to create a human being out of her.
I simply can't talk.
She's not just this angry, screaming girl in the UN, but also this nerdy teenager that has different dimensions. I remember when Greta told me one day that she had posted on her social media accounts for a lift to sail over the Atlantic Ocean. And I just felt like, oh my God, no. I was shit scared. These boats are nothing like these big yachts that you've seen in the Hamptons.
It's basically a huge sail attached to this super light hull. It kind of leaps in the wind, really muscular, jumps forward. But what that means is that it crashes against the waves, and essentially it's a giant drum.
So I talked to the captain and I talked a little bit more to Greta, and then understood that this was going to be a very special journey. We had like a big production meeting, and I talked to this guy who was a specialist at filming on these boats, and he was like, you need to carry like 3 cameras. And I was like, why? Because everything will break. So we brought all the gear that he said that we should have. After just a few days, everything broke. The opening shot that everyone thinks is so dramatic and so cinematic, it was actually one of the more calm days. After a few days on the boat, we and our minds and our bodies kind of adapted to this crazy jungle of carbon fiber and ropes and sounds.
And then here the wind is from behind and light, so here's the high pressure. This will be quite bumpy, and after that the wind is strong from behind. This is also not. It only starts to blow stronger. 5 in the morning, tomorrow morning. It will be a bit challenging, but
there's only one thing, in a sense, that I know will be true, and that is my curiosity. It guided me through this process of making this movie. I wanted to be able to capture the moments exactly when they played out.
Måste gå ut nu, man blir för... Det gungar för mycket, man blir lite illamående här inne.
Du måste bara stängas.
Okej,
Her expressions draws the camera close to her. It's like the camera wanted that. And it became a very intimate style.
Det tog ganska många timmar innan vi slutade se land. Det här får på något sätt ersätta dagbok, för jag kommer inte kunna skriva så mycket, för när jag skriver så mår man illa. Ja, det var väl allt för idag. Något du vill tillägga?
Nej, jag tycker du har sagt allt.
This was really pushing my boundaries of cinematography. We are in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The water is kind of spraying around this boat. We're moving in 20 knots or something. But I have this responsibility towards her and towards the world to capture this journey. And also I have a responsibility towards myself. I need to survive this trip, because if you get seasick, it can actually be dangerous on these boats. This is much more an emotional film than this an informational film.
Vi pratade nyss i telefon. Min mamma och Beata. Jag längtar hem. Jag längtar efter att få ha en vardag med rutiner.
It of course becomes a big kind of burden on Greta's shoulders that she maybe didn't have thought about when she started this journey.
Det är så mycket ansvar. Jag vill inte behöva göra allt det här. Det är för mycket för mig. Dygnet runt. Men jag vet hur viktigt det är och vad som står på spel.
You could almost do like a documentary just about what happened on that boat. We tend to forget now, this is really like a small grassroots activism that started in Sweden from nothing. It grew and grew and grew. She was, of course, an international kind of celebrity and maybe the most famous climate activist that we've ever seen on the planet. Film really kind of showcases how quickly this year went for Greta. When I understood that this was something happening in hyperlapse speed, it was definitely when Greta met the Pope, and I was like, Jesus, like 8 months ago, she was sitting on this cold cobblestone street in Stockholm, and now I'm desperately trying to get kind of the sharpness right onto Pope Franciscus' eye. Forming the narrative of the film, one thing that struck me very much filming was how interesting it became, kind of juxtaposing kind of regular small situations with kind of these huge kind of speeches and these moments that Greta was, in.
Bara ät någonting nu.
De väntar.
Greta, jag skiter i om de väntar. Du får gå i förväg så åker vi sen, okej?
From kind of, meeting the Pope, it could swing over just in like 10 minutes to something which was just a small, weird and funny moment that anyone could kind of recognize.
Det är inte vackert. Nej. Typ.
After watching I Am Greta, of course you will understand the effects of climate change, and you will understand how important it is that we create a world where we can have climate justice. But there's also this kind of sub-thread of the film, which is about Greta's diagnosis and about seeing the world differently. To be able to see injustices in all different parts of society. And I think in that sense, Greta is such an important person.
The world is waking up. And change is coming whether you like it or not.
Just to explain that she has this aspect of Asperger and didn't go to school even for some years, and started to read about the climate and the changes. And with her mindset, she became such an expert in acquiring all this information and having that knowledge available. That's why when she decided not to go to school and have the strike, and it was picked up by the news, and then she was invited to speak on a conference, and then she had to speak in the European Parliament, and then they asked her to come to the United Nations in New York. But she doesn't fly by plane, because she says we have to only drives in electric cars and in trains. So she decided to take that boat, and that's what you just saw as a key issue. She took that boat, but she did not realize what it meant to her. And also, she doesn't want to be a hero, but she knows that, okay, it doesn't really make her happy, and it's a lot of pressure, as you can see. But she knows she's a symbol, and she can make people, she can talk to the politicians and make them aware of their responsibility. So that is the basis of this story. The other story that I want to share with you is a documentary that is called Eyes on Fire, which was produced and for a big part paid by Leonardo DiCaprio. In this documentary, that is also 90 minutes more or less, I will show you two scenes or two sequences. In this documentary, they are going to visit all the places in the earth where scientists are doing the real deep science research for all the numbers, all the facts that we have here, and working together and evaluating together, which shows that the facts are there. And I want to show you two sequences of this documentary. One is about fires, because as you know, more and more fires, natural fires, start. And it's for a big part caused by the climate crisis. And so I want to show you this sequence, also because it gives you knowledge and it gives you maybe ideas for your own climate reporting.
The impact of our actions are starting to hit home. Scientists' predictions are now coming true sooner than expected. We are tragically suffering through severe storms, droughts, floods, and fires that are progressively becoming more intense and more unpredictable.
Fires started almost simultaneously in multiple places. Over 7,000 structures were destroyed and about 3,000 homes. I think at the height in the early days of the fire, maybe about 100,000 people were evacuated. It's a collective trauma.
Sounded like a war zone, looked like a war zone. You know, they talk about the Hanley fire. It took a day to get here. It burned about the same footprint, but it took about a day, burned less than 200 structures. This fire started at night, made it to Santa Rosa in 4.5 hours, and there's no comparison other than the footprint. Cal Fire Incident Management Team came here to help run this incident. And he just shook his head and said, man, I've never seen anything like this. I've been doing this a long time. So that's not terribly comforting, but that's where we're at right now. If we keep having these wind events, how do we protect our citizens? How do we protect our infrastructure? What are the things that we can do to make it as good as possible? We've been through 4 or 5 years of drought. That drought stresses all the brush, all the trees, and the winds at Geyser Peak on one of the weather stations was clocked at 108 miles an hour. And I don't know what you do with those kinds of winds. When something catches on fire, it's all you can do to try to figure out where it's going and how fast it's going to get there.
I never would have thought the fire would come out of the hills and run the flats in Santa Rosa. I really didn't. Cars were being flipped over. There were shoebox chunks of embers that were being carried well ahead of the fire. You'll see there's some trees where all the limbs are they're snapped off. They're not burned off, they're snapped off.
These natural disasters are so common now that people know what's going to happen to their community. It's not like a matter of if, but when. It is a wake-up call to everyone that climate change is here and that you need to plan for it.
Climate disruption is causing a rise in extinctions today. But this isn't the first time. Scientists studying geological records have shown there is a connection between spikes in carbon and the past 5 mass extinctions. There is a natural law that the carbon cycle affects the fabric of life. Every time there has been a massive increase in carbon, the web of life weakens and sometimes collapses.
Well, he has the perfect dramatic voice for this. And this scene I also wanted to show you. This is about the permafrost. I think it explains itself, but just shortly, that is because some parts of the Earth are so frozen, some dangerous gases are hidden under the ground. But now the temperature rises, some of those gases escape, create more CO2 and direct danger for health. That is what this sequence is about.
We have warmed the atmosphere to such a degree that we have hit the tipping point of a melting Arctic. We now face the potential for an abrupt climate change scenario. Current models predict we will shoot way past the Paris Agreement to 5 degrees and more, causing even more catastrophic tipping points to be activated.
Warming might lead to large injections of methane into the atmosphere is something we need to be concerned about. I would only add that it's one of many possible stressors. Move into a high-risk situation where we don't really have any experience. We don't know how to deal with it.
Permafrost and methane in general is of a great concern. And I think that this is something perhaps we need to pay more attention to methane in general in relation to the climate issue. My concerns are that there are great reservoirs of methane in the world, in particular in the Arctic. It is the risk of going beyond a tipping point where it will be difficult to go back and reverse the problem.
It's a very plausible feedback mechanism that in Arctic soils, permafrost soils, there's an enormous amount of organic material frozen, and the amount that is available there potentially to turn into CO2 and methane is maybe 3 times, 4 times all of the fossil fuels that we have burned. If we take all this material out of the deep freeze, you very likely get large CO2 and methane emissions on a huge scale over which we have no control.
I study methane emissions from lakes. We are in interior Alaska, and we are in discontinuous permafrost. The thing that we're looking at is microbial methane. This methane bubbling here behind me, it's dead plant and animal remains that were locked up in permafrost for tens of thousands of years. And as that permafrost is thawing, the microbes eat that soil carbon and they turn it into methane. This process of permafrost thawing and that thawing permafrost fueling methane production, and then methane escapes into the atmosphere, causes climate warming, which causes more permafrost to thaw. We call that a permafrost carbon feedback. It is a natural process. Our concern, though, is that as climate warms at a faster rate than it has in the last 10,000 years, that permafrost is going to respond by thawing a lot more quickly and releasing at a faster rate methane gas. Now, every time I go to a new lake, I attempt to light these gas pockets because it's a very high concentration of methane. It's highly flammable. We see a positive flame test when they contain methane. So it's a quick gas chromatograph on the lake to tell us, do we have a methane lake or are we dealing with a different kind of lake? There are many new lakes forming that were not here 30 or 60 years ago. And those lakes have 10 to 100 to 1,000 times more methane than the rest of the lakes. They are a picture of the type of methane emissions we expect to see in the next 10 to 50 years as permafrost warms and thaws, and that permafrost feedback cycle kicks in and really accelerates.
Now, is it methane? Is it permafrost? Is it the dissolved organic carbon in the ocean, which is suddenly remobilized? These things are all intertwined with each other. So really what one needs to ask is, are there positive feedbacks within the system? The answer is yes. So it just stands to reason, purely by common sense, the less you disturb it, the better off things will be.
An incredible story. I didn't know this when I saw this documentary. And that explains the title of the documentary, Ice on Fire, and it's incredible. Yeah.
About the permafrost.
Yeah.
Can't they take advantage of it? Like, it's a gas, so I don't know. Can't the scientists create something out of it?
To collect it and use it.
Exactly.
But this is the problem. Gas,
I know,
burning
but
gas delivers CO2.
Exactly, but I'm like, if you take that gas into use for something else, that will like slow down the process, something like that.
It's a very interesting idea, but it is one problem taking over the other problem. Because it delivers the CO2. That's the thing. We're trapped. But this, it says 3-4 times more than fossil fuels is defrosting slowly. So I think enough devastating stories about the climate crisis, but I really wanted to show you these high quality productions. The documentary of Greta, if you have a chance to watch it, really watch it. It's an incredible story, and it shows how she put it on the agenda. And this documentary that only interviews scientists, not Dan Peña kind of types, people that really know, that are worldwide connected and have 20, 30 years of study. So we're in this knowledge part. We also should see this. when we talked about, when we heard already that in the global north, it's an expression that I usually don't use because it pretends that there is a line between countries. I don't believe in that. I believe we're one world, and we just have to organize it a little bit. Here you see how, more or less, it explodes since the 20th century and since the 21st century. The emissions go like crazy. Well, my little country is here, so fortunately it's not here. And you see, for instance, the economical success of China is also the price that it costs. What you also see is countries where there is at least a policy bringing down, there the curve goes down. The question is, it's not fast enough. Another one here, these are two statistics. One is the world's least polluted countries. And I already made this morning the difference between CO2 and pollution that you have in your daily. And you see here, then you see that in the global north, these countries, Netherlands number 8, are the least polluted countries. So we managed at least to have our pollution down. Still, we have to work hard on the CO2. And then you see the other way around. If you look at the most polluted cities in the world, then suddenly you go to the south, and well, all the reasons and complexity of it, as you have addressed already this morning, but it shows that it is not a matter of waiting for the other. It's really, we're doomed in this together, and we must act. And that's why I'm so happy you're all here, so we can share it. This is the Netherlands, the electric cars that I told you this morning. So you see, with the support from the government, to say that we must have reached the Paris Agreement. You see, since 2019, how fast the electric cars have been growing. And this is an indication how many electric charging points are there. You see the same that, okay, if you have a lot of cars, you need electric charging points. And then you see how it is compared. So imagine that Netherlands, which is one of the smallest countries in Europe, I think Germany is 18 times bigger. Well, we have much more electric points than Germany. So that at least I can tell you, and that's why I dare to talk about this subject, because at least my country is doing something. Making the step to the social media reporting. I have time for one little question.
I think the problem in the Dominican Republic is the government don't show the people how they really impact, what the really climate crisis, for example. The newspaper don't show the people how they really impact, what happened in our country, what they really it's important. For example, we have poor neighborhoods, and in these neighborhoods foldings because the garbage, the trash, and we don't really see a change in the Dominican Republic because the government don't do nothing for that change that make sense in the present and in the future, and probably the society don't know about how bigger is the problem here. And my question is, if hypothetical, we have a better government here in the Dominican Republic, what the government get the collaborate of population?
Yeah. Well, in fact, similar to what we discussed this morning is information. If there's information and you can be part of that information chain, it is impossible to deny. So information, you say the media doesn't, okay, well, that's why we're talking about reporting. So it starts with information, involvement, participation, And there's a lot of things that as a civil society you can do. I told already this morning that we are organizing a lot of things. And we say, okay, the government is for this and this and that, but we are the people, we will take care of our country. So this is very theoretical, but that is a way to approach things like that. It only will change on the political spectrum when there's a large amount of knowledge and demand of it by the population. I have to move on a little bit. We'll keep your question for a later moment, because I want to make the jump to climate crisis reporting. I happened to be in the Netherlands when there was a conference where journalists from around the world who are specialized in climate crisis reporting were coming, and they asked me to make a few short videos to ask them about what are the challenges of climate crisis reporting by journalists today. And I want to show you these 3 short clips. So you see some of those journalists addressing some of the problems and the challenges that are there, and that might be helpful for you to understand the complexity.
One of the biggest challenges that journalists face reporting climate change may be issues of security. Climate security generally, traveling all the way to that place may be a big risk. So there's a need for insurance for journalists and more protection.
There's a few technical challenges. One is sort of explaining and getting the science right to readers and presenting that in a way that's accessible. And another way is sort of piercing through the noise of all the other big things that are happening, and to break through that and say, hey, this is an important story. We have to get at that story. To get through to editors that this is an important story, and then to come up with strategies to get through to readers and make these stories compelling.
So 2 completely different things that are important for journalists. One thing that I took from it is you really have to make it you really have to have the science right, he says. So don't say something if you haven't checked if this is really a right number. And then when you present it, it has to be accessible. People have to understand what you're saying. Like the documentary of Leonardo DiCaprio's trying to make us understand what it means, this permafrost. I started to understand it. So that is one of the challenges in climate reporting, is be really sure about the things you say, the numbers, science, and make it accessible for people. Next clip.
Journalists can contribute to reporting on climate change issues and effectively in countries like Pakistan, because you know that majority of people, they don't know about this topic. It's very emerging, it's a new phenomena for local people. It involves science, their lack of research on the topic. 98% journalists, they don't know about the issue. So there is a huge demand and huge need for training journalists on these issues, to how to cover those topics.
Report better, they must begin to face the issues squarely. We need to take local solutions to these issues. Then we need to start changing the narratives when it comes to these issues. It affects the livelihood of people. So we need to start taking the issues to the grassroots, taking it and holding government accountable.
So one thing I took out of this is that maybe journalists want to report, but they don't know about it. So again, information. What is the situation? The more people are aware of it, the more they have to act. And the third,
one main thing that I've learned from this conference is the feeling that the multilateral institutions and the governments that are supposed to be dealing with climate change that those institutions are not dealing with it at all, that they're failing so miserably. Anything decent that's coming right now, any initiatives that are happening right now are happening far outside of the scope of these people.
Prior to this conference, I didn't know that women are more affected by issues of climate change, especially when it comes to agriculture, livelihood support and all that, and climate resilience programs. They need to focus more on issues of women, gender issues when it comes to climate change.
Now I know that there is a nexus of climate and security. So in the future reporting, we will be very much caring about the security aspect of climate change. How we can connect a global topic with the local audience.
I think that last one is a good one also. It's a huge global problem, but if you talk about the world and the CO2, it's difficult for someone locally to understand. So make it connected with things that are happening locally. And there, again, is a great role when you want to make climate crisis reporting, is to see, okay, if this happens on a big scale, how is that here in my country or in my street or in my neighborhood, my city, my village? And also that it affects women more than men is also something to take in consideration. But, you know, this is happening on social media meanwhile. Climate change, the made-up catastrophe used by globalists and socialists to instill fear and guilt to tax, regulate, and remove our freedoms while pretending to be saving the planet. There's a huge power against the reality. Then there are different ways of addressing the topic. From now on, I want to start to show you some examples of things that you can do in social media. And here's an extreme example. Let's watch it. I will not comment it, just watch it.
Breaking news now. Europe is scorching, forests are burning, people are passing out due to the heat. But don't worry, because H&M is saving the planet. I'm Polyester and this is Trash Talk. H&M's Take Back programme incentivises customers to donate clothes in return for store credit. H&M claim that these donations will be reused, resold or recycled. In January, a Swedish investigative journalism team put this claim to the test. They donated 10 good condition garments to various H&M stores in Sweden, with air tags attached to track their journey to recycling heaven. Spoiler alert, they never made it. Instead, the 2 best quality garments, which according to H&M's policy could have been resold, were ground down to fibres. 2 ended up at a second-hand wholesaler in Romania, 3 were lost at sea, and 3 were dumped in countries in the global south. Together, the 10 items travelled 1.5 laps around the earth. H&M CEO Helena Helmersson said this is not H&M's fault. And anyway, none of these items ended up in landfill, so everything's fine. Although, the people at the forefront of the textile waste crisis in Accra in Ghana say that H&M is one of the top 5 most commonly found brands found washed up at the beach. But who cares what they have to say, hey hells? Gaslight gatekeep, girl boss.
Okay, so comedy, whether you like it or not, comedy is a way of doing it. So it's a parody on the news, but meanwhile, she's really telling something that I didn't know. So not only a realistic, classic journalist approach might work, but maybe this works, I don't know. This was made for TikTok. Did it work for you? Got it your interest? Or would you say, no, I will not watch this kind of things? I see some noddings. Okay, well, that's what I tried, and then, so a very serious script, because they really wrote a script bringing the information, but then in a parody way, in order not to lose an audience, to attract an audience, with a lot of jokes in it. But most important thing is the information was really shocking. I mean, you think you are part of a recycle chain and it's all fake. Again, that's why we have to check, and like she said, a Swedish research journalistic team went to find out, is it really true what H&M says? So you cannot trust the information. You have to check, double check, triple check. Then there is the World Economic Forum. Let's say, right-wing media, the World Economic Forum wants to take over the world, wants to replace us by robots and this kind of nonsense. In fact, it is a meeting once a year from government representatives from around the world. And one of the things they do in video, especially I follow them on LinkedIn, which is a more professional platform for work. They post every day 3-4 videos where they show what is happening really on a local level with actions to fight climate crisis. Here's an example. So this is also a style of informing you see more and more on various news platforms where they don't comment, they just put music. But everything is visualized with text. So, and you know that the majority of the people watches video on their cell phone without the sound on. And usually with having the cell phone vertical. So no matter if you have a horizontal video, they will not change it. Generally, we watch videos like this. So if it is like a documentary, it is just a little stamp, like a very small piece of your screen. That's why I think TikTok is so successful, because it was the first platform where it was completely dedicated to vertical video. At the moment that a lot of adults said, oh, vertical video is nothing. They should keep it like this, it's more beautiful. I never believed that. I said, okay, it's interesting if we do it like this. But if we do it like this, it also needs to think about aesthetics, beauty, the same as when we do it like this. So that's also something I want to talk a little bit about. But they make everything in square, so also on their Instagram, and also they put it like that on their YouTube channel and on their website. These kind of videos, maybe not this one specifically, or maybe not the way they do it, but in general, having images, music, for those who put on the music, and text, which is relatively easy to produce, can be very effective in news. Okay, I want to go through a couple of more examples, but I will do it. No, let's go first to the vertical discussion. Because that is an interesting one. If you talk about how I'm going to make my video, like I said, when cell phones, or when TikTok came, Instagram had just square videos of 15 seconds. So it was a revolution. Suddenly it was full vertical. Now Instagram, you can have vertical video, but you cannot control it. The worst app I know. It's most successful, I know, but it's worse. How can you not stop a video That's unfair. That's stupid. Maybe because TikTok has the patent that they are not allowed to. So for someone working in video, Instagram you never use. Because I cannot stop it, I cannot fast forward it, I cannot jump. And that's what I want as a video user. So still, for me, Instagram is still a visual, photos, and the stories, you can make a little bit more of animation. But for video, that's why I think TikTok is massively the biggest in the world now, because it is really a video platform. I've also tried some photos montages on TikTok, but it doesn't work. You see the numbers go down immediately. So that is really video. Okay, so vertical video. When the cell phones became better in filming, you probably are of a generation that the cell phones and vertical video was always working. The moment you got a phone, you could film and it was pretty good quality, yeah? Or, yeah, now we say so because now we have 4K. But let's say we have to go 20 years back when everybody said, oh, I had a camera, the first phone from Nokia with video, and it was 0.005 megapixel. And I showed it, and you had to look like, what do I see? And I said, wow, video on your phone. That generation I am. That didn't happen to you. So vertical video was there always. Adults who grew up with cinema, with television, widescreen, 16:9, suddenly there was vertical video and their kids started to film in vertical video and they said, oh, horrible. You should keep it like this, it's more beautiful. Really? Those people really didn't like it. And I still think there are some adults still having resistance against vertical video. And I understand, because there was never a cinema built with a vertical screen. Isn't that weird? Isn't that unfair? While vertical video is such a big thing, we should have cinemas where there's a vertical screen where this kind of movies are projected. That is what I'm fighting for in Europe. The other thing is, if vertical video is so important, it's maybe the most used form now today, where are the discussions about aesthetics, how to use it properly, how to cut? Because we are talking about quality productions, not about just, filming. We're talking about the best quality we can offer. Like the movie of Greta, you saw how he tried to make the best movie possible with her. Or the documentary of Leonardo DiCaprio. We should have that same thought always when we make something. And then you can say, okay, the circumstances, etc. But if you start by, okay, I will do it like this. Always have the biggest intention and then see what is possible. So, let's look at horizontal versus vertical. You will see the same scene, first shot in horizontal and then in vertical. This is in Montenegro, and you will see someone from UNICEF on stage. So I'm filming, there she is, and there we have the room full of people. These are the climate reporters from Montenegro. Okay, you see the movement, and it ends like this, and you see a nice picture with people divided over the screen. This is good. Yeah? Now we see it in vertical. The beginning is great. The flag, and then we see people, we see people, we see people, and we stop. Horror. Same shot, vertical versus horizontal. So if I film in vertical, I have to think of using my camera differently. Not being in the same situation that what I would do like this, and then do like this. Because this is emptiness and bad composition, plastic bottles. We'll talk about climate crisis reporting, by the way. This is something we have to change. This too. Maybe this is breakable plastic, I don't know. But it is so impactful in our lives. Because this also something to think about. This This. let's stop. So vertical versus horizontal, it means that you have to think about it. Then, okay, let me see how the big professionals doing it. Oh no, I have to tell you. This is another one. Last year we started a news program for teenagers in Egypt. And they wanted to make TV and social media at the same time. So we decided this. When we film, we film in horizontal with the camera.
ما انا بقول لك بيبقى ساعات في حاجات بتبقى اللي هي بتبان قوي ان هي الناس كلها عماله تهاجم نفس الحاجه ما بيبقاش عندهم اللي هي وجهه نظر معينه تعرف ان
and at the same time
مثلا انت خلاص بتعرف
have a cell phone for the vertical.
انت بوجهه نظرك انت
because we know
اللي هو الذكاء الاصطناعي طبعا هو
this will go to TV and to YouTube, even though YouTube Shorts very successful now, and this will go to social media. Just think for which platform am I going to work? This is the first news production in the world doing it like this, in Egypt. Yes, TikTok, let's see. So I was also going to look at, we're now just looking at reporting, not specifically climate reporting, but it is interesting for us to think how to do it. I thought, okay, let's see how the $1 million industry business company Lady Gaga is doing it. She has people daily, 24 hours around her making her social media. She's not doing it herself. So let's see how they do it.
I'm off the deep end, watch as I dive in. I never meet the ground. Crash through the surface where they can't hurt us. We're far from the shallow now.
We go wide.
That can be much better. Let's have a look at it. What is going on here? First of all, what a horrible shot. I mean, you can hardly see her. More than half of is just a white table. How can they put this on social media? Are they not taking us seriously? Then, by the way, this is most probably one of the script readings before they made that movie, Star is Born. Who has seen A Star is Born? Not so much. Hey, it was a huge international movie. You saw it or you have a question? You didn't see it. All right. So this shot, I mean, she's the main star and we can hardly see her. Okay, let's continue. Okay, now we go to a close-up. Yes, a close-up works perfectly in vertical video. Even better because you can focus on the face, not the environment around it. Very strong. Really see the emotions. Now cut from the other side, jump cut, no problem. Great close-up. A little bit more of the body. A cut to the other actor. And for those who have seen the movie or have heard about it, and this is just before this film, the whole marketing of this movie was, are they in love? Remember? Are they in love? So also here in this video, before they even made the movie, they are already cutting in a way that, he's looking very suspicious to her. But a good shot, framing could be better, yes? I mean, the head is here. Okay, but let's be not too critical. to this $1 million industry. There she is again. So it's cut from her to him and back. Great. That is how you make a romantic movie.
Crash through the
Oh, we're drowning in the tablecloth again.
surface where they can't hurt us. We're far
There's great. Now we go to the finale. They cut to her close up.
from the shallow now.
And she's, wow. Now she's looking at him. Let's see if he looks back. Let's see. Yeah. But a little shy. Look what's happening. Oh, shit. Sorry. I lost it. I was here somewhere. Sorry, in the middle of the finale, I'm making a mistake. There he goes. So he's he's looking, and now he's looking at her.
Why?
And look at the arm. But look at the shitty shot. How can you show me this? The most important romantic moment of the video I'm waiting for. That they see each other in the eye and she's cut. The main star. It's incredible. How can they put this rubbish? Okay, we even lost her completely here. There she's back. So, vertical video, perfect for many things, but work on it. That's what I want to say. It has a new way of aesthetic. Who does a great job is a football club from England called Tottenham Hotspur. Not the best football club in the world. They're in the top 10 of the Premier League in England, but let's say one of the rich clubs. So it's not Barcelona or Madrid, the big clubs of the world. Tottenham. They have a social media department who know how to make a news story in TikTok. Watch it and then we play it again.
Watermelon sugar. Hi, baby, do you wanna be mine? Maybe we can see the seaside. Wanna kick it with you.
This is how you make a social media video. Why? First of all, it's a football club. We need to know where we are, and the logo is important for the football club. Okay, this is the logo on the building. All the movements go to one direction, constantly. So you're in a flow, so it doesn't matter how long the shot is, you understand where you are and where we go. And they used the music, at that moment was one of the hits on TikTok, so not make your own music, let's just take a popular song. Okay, so we see the club, we see the training ground, training center. We see inside the building, just in 3 shots, we have seen the whole premise of Tottenham Hotspur. 3 shots, maybe not even 3 seconds. Oh wait, I'm making a mistake again. It's not so easy to do it here. Yeah, here we are. So, we're in the club now, inside, and there's a guy on a training machine. And all the fans already know that they were negotiating, maybe he becomes our new star. A clever shot, because they could have filmed it with the face. So we see the back and the face. So we immediately identify, hey, that's this guy.
Baby, do you want?
And he's tested if he's capable of being healthy enough for the and he's going to wear this shirt that is now available in our store. It doesn't say, but it says. You understand what I mean? Completely seducing me now to buy his t-shirt. Completely, and just so cleverly edited inside that you don't get annoyed.
Maybe we can see.
And of course we need him to have it.
Seaside, wanna kick it with you.
And yeah. Is very little button here, that's why. The thing is also how it ends. This is typical what usually players do. They have been all their life in one club. They come to a new club and they do this. Like they love it. Well, he found that a little bit too much, so he did it like this. My heart is with you guys. Buy my shirt. But this is social media language. All the shots, the minimum they need, and for one who is a fan, every information I need about this. So a visual story. So you can tell a story in 7, 8 pictures without no words. I mean, compare that to how the World Economic Forum is doing it, with slow video shots and text going in and explaining everything. It's facts, okay, it's also important. This is less facts, this is more emotion, but they did it in a very, very good way. Also the framing here, you know, the final framing, the color of the background, everything is simply, quickly, well thought. So they haven't been producing this with 50 people, probably only one. It's possible. So they understand. Then another thing you can do in social media, sorry, I'll come back to you later because I really have to go to some point and we're almost at time. The other thing I wanted to show you is, this is much more for behind the scenes. She is the presenter of the national news in the Netherlands for children, or children and families. A special daily news program, 15 minutes, showing the world news, but also the news from the perspective of children or what is happening in the world of children, which the main news usually doesn't. So she had to make a report on a windy beach. And that was a disaster because the wind was very hard. Typical Dutch weather is hard wind, rain, sand in your eyes. Okay. So they thought many things went wrong, but you cannot show that in the news because the news has to be news. So they said, okay, let's make an edit and put it on her social media, on her TikTok, because it will contribute to her popularity, and maybe because they start to like her, look how great it is, they want to watch her program. So also social media has the message, but also the indirect message. The background. The background stories can help to get the interest of people. So maybe one of you is going to make a climate report, the other one is filming that behind the scenes. And you have two stories, 2 dimensions. Just as a thing, as a thought. Let's watch it, what is happening. Pretty heavy.
Hey!
Well, that's it. Also, looks very simple, but nothing more you need to understand, oh my God, it was really, really difficult. And now you saw my country with the dunes to protect the sea. Well, you saw a little bit there. Yes, this part is the end, and I'm asking Sandra, or actually the question is to you, how much overtime can we be? 5 minutes, 10, I think not so much, eh? The schools have to, all right, then it's clear. Yes. We can go on all day, well, not completely true, but okay, I have to end it here. That's, I had many things to share with you. For instance, one of the things I wanted to share with you is, first I will put this one. One of the things I wanted to share with you is what are the trends on TikTok. And how can maybe if you tell a story on TikTok and you do it in a certain structure, and you repeat that structure, it might become like a trend. One trend that I want to mention you, I will write it down here because it's not so easy, is a Dutch bee artist. Bee artist means that he goes in a cafe and has 50 people applauding, not in a stadium with 50,000. So a very, very unknown artist whose name is, look for him on TikTok. Dries. D-R-I-E-S. Roelvink. R-O-E-L-V-I-N-K. Why I'm mentioning him? Because he was nothing on TikTok. But one day, he made a little video about him testing wine before he went to have dinner. And his friend filmed that on a cell phone. He's a singer, yeah. And they cut it. And in fact, what he's doing, he's pretending that he knows everything about wine. You know it? You've seen it. That's Dries Roelvink from my country. He was really unknown, but he made one video, and suddenly he had 400,000 views. So he went from 400 to 400. So they copied it in another restaurant, and it had 1 million views. They copied it in another restaurant, and people started to share it, 5 million. And it became a trend worldwide. People started to copy it. I saw an incredible video where 2 kids in a small village in Africa with a bottle of Sisi or Fanta, playing the same thing. So what it shows is that at some point it's not original anymore, but it becomes something you recognize and smile about, and maybe you want to make your own version. That is also something I wanted to, let's finish with that, to think about. If you are making something on TikTok, let's say climate crisis reporting, in no matter what style or genre you want to do it, think of if you give it a certain structure and you repeat that structure, and again, that is a possibility to have it as a viral thing. It has to have some fun, it needs to have something that people remember, and that they think I can do it myself. There was also this Wes Anderson trend. Wes Anderson is a English director who has made some very stylish films. One of his styles is that he makes everything, how do you call that? That's the word I was looking for. Symmetrical. So all the shots are completely styled. With a certain filter, it becomes like a little bit pastelish. And there was one girl went on a train ride in England and thought, I make a little clip in that style. So she put a filter on everything, made a similar kind of stylish shots, put it on TikTok, and thousands, 10,000, 100,000 of people watching it, starting to make their own Wes Anderson video. I did the same. If you want to see it, go to TikTok or YouTube, look for my name. You'll probably find it. And you will see my girlfriend, who is the main actress in my movie. But why I want to say this is that is to finish the story about social media reporting and climate crisis reporting. I wanted to show you more examples of climate crisis reporting, but in fact it's not so important. I showed you a palette of possibilities. We've seen the data and the facts and the urgency. Anything you want to do on that, interviewing someone, talking on the phone and telling your story, your concern or whatever, anything you do where the facts are correct, the science is right, where you tell it in a way or film it in a way that it's not too abstract, but people can really understand what you're talking about. So show an example. If you say, yes, it's going so bad in my country with the climate crisis. If you say it, it's abstract, it doesn't touch me. But when you have an image that tells it, it's much stronger. So think of that. That is the key message I want to give to you, is we need you. Without you, the information, the stories, the urgency, the political decisions, even the political agenda will not be there. Not only here, around the world. Greta Thunberg became the symbol of the Fridays for Future movement. In many countries before the pandemic, in the pandemic, unfortunately, it went down, but many countries, more and more schools decided to strike every Friday afternoon. I'm not telling you you must strike. That is another kind of decision. I would prefer you, because a strike is a signal, but information is a much stronger signal. So I would encourage you to use your social media, to connect your social media, to tell stories, to inform, to challenge. And Sandra and I have decided that in order to stimulate that, we ask you to either make it and upload it on your own social media and send us your link, or send us your video, and we will select before the end of the year. Let's say until Christmas you have the chance. Between Christmas and New Year, I will put 3 of them on the international platform of Wadada News that I'm running, which means you will reach many people in many countries, which is also important that the story of you, Dominican Republic, is also heard in other countries. Sandra, which email are we going to use for that? All right. Yes, you will receive the right email. So that's the challenge. Let's say this is our climate challenge. Because I would be so happy to see, after this morning session, where time flies much too fast, but okay, that's life. There's so much to talk, so much to show. I hope that you get inspiration from it, that you get ideas from it, that you feel encouraged to do it. And I would be so thrilled to see something and to pick 3 and put them on the Wadada platform. Unfortunately, we have to stop. There are many questions, I know. Maybe we also have to think of questions to organize. I will talk with Sandra about that. Because the main thing is always, in this kind of meetings, interaction. That I listened to you, I learned a lot today, absolutely. The questions that were asked, the concerns that I feel are here, incredible. And we stay connected, no matter what. So thank you very much for being here. It was an honor.